Today on the ZubiaLive channel, we're going to be talking about polycystic ovarian syndrome, otherwise known as PCOS, right here on the Women's Healthbeat show, hosted by Dr. Felice Gersh. Hello, I'm Shane Schultz, the executive producer of the ZubiaLive channel. Today on ZubiaLive, we're very excited to present to you the premiere episode of the Women's Healthbeat show, hosted by Dr. Felice Gersh. Today, Dr. Felice will talk about polycystic ovarian syndrome, otherwise known as PCOS, a syndrome that affects women worldwide. Just wait and see how much in today's episode. But before we get started, we'd like to say thank you to our sponsor, Celluma. Celluma is your light therapy device that treats a variety of skin and pain conditions, including arthritic pain, facial wrinkles, and even acne. To learn more about Celluma, visit celluma.com. All right, without further ado, let me introduce the Women's Healthbeat show, hosted by Dr. Felice Gersh. PCOS, what is it? Please welcome my good friend, Dr. Felice Gersh. Dr. Felice, it's awesome to have you here today.
Hi, Shane. I'm very excited to be here with you today to begin my new journey on the Women's Healthbeat.
It is really awesome. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of buzz going around about your show, and especially with it focusing on women's health. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about a topic that you are very familiar with, and that is PCOS. But what is it?
Well, PCOS, which stands for polycystic ovary syndrome, is actually the most common endocrine disorder of reproductive aged women, affecting anywhere from 5, depending on the nation, up to 20 or even 30% of all reproductive aged women.
Wow. Okay. All right. So how does one get diagnosed with PCOS? Is there a test like something like somebody who might have fibromyalgia?
That's actually one of the big problems with PCOS, is that there is no one test. It's a syndrome. That's what is a problem when you have a syndrome, is that it's a sort of a compilation of a variety of symptoms. So there was actually a big, what they call a convention that occurred several years back in the early 2000s in Rotterdam. And they called it the Rotterdam Convention, where they defined what it took to become labeled with the diagnosis of PCOS. Their diagnostic criteria included an ultrasound that showed lots of little cysts around the rim of the ovary, or having irregular cycles or no cycles at all, or having some sign of androgen excess, like facial hair, hair thinning on the top of the head, or acne. And what they required was 2 out of the 3. But then another organization called the Androgen Excess PCOS Society, they came up with some different criteria. In their criteria, a woman had to have androgen excess, and then they had to have either the cysts on the ovary or irregular cycles. So actually, there's not a uniform agreement around the world as to what really is the definition of PCOS, which makes it that much more complicated.
And androgen excess, that is a male hormone, right?
Well, it turns out that women and men are kind of like flips of each other. So a man has 1/10 the amount of estrogen as a woman, and a woman has about 1/10 the amount of testosterone as a man. So they're actually not unique to one gender. They're just proportionately different.
I see. Okay, now that makes sense. All right, so symptoms. You just mentioned some of the symptoms that people might exhibit with PCOS. Being a doctor, and we talked about it when we introduced your show, you are a board-certified OBGYN physician, and you're also board-certified in integrative medicine as well. So are there some things that people can do in order to be either healthier, whether it be proper diet or nutrition or exercise? Because I'm all about, you know, thinking out of the box in order to be able to be healthier. Are there some things that people can do in order to reduce the symptoms they may be exhibiting?
Absolutely. We now know that inflammation is the driving force of virtually all the symptoms that women with PCOS experience. And we now know that inflammation begins in the gut. Right. So by changing the diet, you can actually really dramatically impact on the symptoms of PCOS. And one of the reasons why PCOS has exploded in its incidence around the world is because of what we call the standard American diet, also known as SAD. And it's a diet that's filled with high levels of very unhealthy fats and sugars and constant eating. We eat around the clock. So we do so many things that actually aggravate the state of our gut. And those little critters, the little microbiota that live in our gut, called the microbiome, we now know from recent studies, just in the last year, that women with PCOS have a different gut microbiota composition. The microbiome is different and it's more inflamed. And women with PCOS have a different immune system. It's more like on edge. It explodes with inflammation more readily. So the initial focus should be on diet.
Okay. Now, we both know that doctors like yourself, they treat through symptomology, and which is often a product of elimination. You know, you're eliminating what is possible to be the issue. So with that being the case, you mentioned some numbers, right, in regards to PCOS and how many that are affected, but that number could be significantly off due to the fact that somebody could be exhibiting symptoms that the doctor may be treating solely instead of going to the core, which is possibly PCOS. Is that right?
Yes, this is actually often a tragedy for women with PCOS because there are such a great variety of symptoms that can be experienced by women with PCOS. They could end up in one of several different types of doctors' offices, and they could, depending on what they perceive as their primary symptom, end up in the office of an endocrinologist, a psychiatrist, a gastroenterologist, an OBGYN, a dermatologist. And doctors, unfortunately, are trained to look with blinders on. They look at the symptom that affects the organ system that they're a specialist in, and they often aren't looking at the big picture. So a woman with PCOS may never get diagnosed or may take years to get diagnosed and then get proper treatment. And there are some recent studies that showed that a typical woman with PCOS will see 7 different doctors over several years before she's given the correct diagnosis.
Yeah, and being a advocate for either medical or mental health, I know that unfortunately, that's not unusual, right? Especially when you're talking about these invisible illnesses that people go through. It's not unusual to have to go to a number of different doctors in order to be able to get on the right page, right?
It is, and that's one of the beautiful things about integrative medicine, is that we don't look at people as a single organ system and break them apart. We put them together and look at them from a holistic point of view.
Sure.
So we look at how all the different organs have an interplay and how everything links back into mental health and stress and diet and exercise and sleep, to really put it all together and then really tackle the problems, the real life changing problems that women with PCOS face, to help them to really have the life that they deserve. And this is not happening routinely. And that's really my mission, is to help women with PCOS to really get the help that they need and to get the information that they require in order to facilitate the path back to health.
Well, I certainly admire you for that, because I am all about, you know, when it comes to things like the autoimmune illnesses, I personally think that it's just autoimmune, that we need to actually go after the autoimmune gene or what have you in order to be able to start making a difference, as opposed to going through the symptomology. And, you know, as we have talked about so far today, our diet, our exercise, you know, and there are other ways of being able to produce our body in order to be the best healer that is out there. And I know that that is one of the reasons why you went into integrative medicine. And, you know, I really do appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And just bringing up autoimmunity, women with PCOS have higher rates of autoimmunity. And one of the things that I'm going to be talking about in future shows is some of the conventional treatments, for example, oral contraceptives, and how they actually now have been shown to increase the incidence of autoimmunity in women. So here we're giving a treatment to women who already have a higher risk of autoimmunity, and we're giving them a drug that increases autoimmunity. And I want to look for alternative treatments that actually deal with the root causes and actually do not create more problems instead of solving problems for women with PCOS.
Absolutely. Now, speaking about PCOS, you actually just came back from a PCOS conference where you were asked to speak. And this is something that you often are asked to do, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I have spoken around the world, Shane, on the topic of PCOS.
So with that being the case, are there any foundations or support groups that you would recommend your audience to check into to see if it can help them understand what it is that they may be going through with PCOS?
Absolutely. Women with PCOS often feel very alone and really are desperate for information and support. There are now two wonderful nonprofits that are there to support women with PCOS. One is called PCOS Awareness Association, and the other one is called PCOS Challenge. And I encourage all the viewers with PCOS to go to their websites and really take advantage of all that they offer for women with PCOS.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that. In fact, you have a number of guests that are going to be talking about not only PCOS, but women's health in general, right? Because it's the Women's Health Beat. It's not just about PCOS, but you do have some people who can relate to PCOS that you're going to have in the very near future. What are a few that you might be having that your audience can look forward to?
Well, very shortly, I'm going to have Ashley, also known on the internet and widely on social media as PCOS Girl. So I'm very excited to have her join me. Yep. I'm also going to have Sasha Adi, who is the executive director of the nonprofit PCOS Challenge, which does wonderful things to advocate for PCOS. And just as a side note, I happen to be on the medical advisory committee for that organization.
Right.
As well, we're going to talk about topics that are interrelated with PCOS, but really apply to women of all ages. And one of them is the topic of food and cardiovascular health. And to address that topic shortly, I will have on one of my friends, Dr. Joel Kahn, a very renowned integrative cardiologist who talks greatly and all over the world as well on the topic of the relationship of food and the heart.
Wow, that is awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to working with you and looking forward to more about the Women's Health Beat. I mean, I actually worked with Ashley about a year ago today to where she was part of an organization, the We Go Health organization, for an award for We Go Health. And she happened to be one of the interviews. So I'm looking forward to being able to work with her again. This is just a little bit of what it is that we're going to be talking about, folks, here on the Women's Health Beat. This is the real deal. I promise you, this is the show that you're going to want to keep track of, and especially if you're dealing with women's health issues, so as to be able to make sure to get current information to current conditions from an expert like Dr. Felice Gersh. Dr. Felice, it's been awesome to have you here today. Looking forward to working with you again.
Well, it's been a great pleasure, and I look forward to many, many more episodes to educate, inform, and help every woman out there to optimize her health. Thank you so much, Shane.
My pleasure. See you again soon. Wow, what a great show. Make sure to join us next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as we have another great show in store for you here on the Women's Health Beat with Dr. Felice Gersh, featuring founder of the PCOSchallenge.org, Sasha Adi. And if you have a health and wellness story or topic that you'd like to share with the ZubiaLive community, make sure to download our app at ZubiaLive.com or your favorite app location. But for now, we'd like to say thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
So Celluma is probably the most innovative light therapy device on the market. It's FDA cleared for 9 indications for use, 3 of those on the aesthetic side and 6 of those on the pain management side. So it's really a whole body, whole family device. Anybody can use it, and it's great for upregulating cellular activity that's been compromised either due to illness, disease, trauma, bad behavioral habits, or just the normal aging process.